This week on the West Asia Post, all eyes are on the Gaza ceasefire deal. Qatari mediators say that there is a clear call to end Gaza war. Amid exchange of jabs between Israeli and Hamas leaders, IDF continues to pound Gaza. Hezbollah vows to escalate attacks, rains rockets in the northern front. Also on the show, we tell you about candidates who made the cut in Iran's presidential race, and all about the 2024 Hajj pilgrimage season. Watch the West Asia Post with me, Radi Francis, every Friday at these times, only on WION. World is One.
Good morning, Asia. Good evening, America. You're watching World DNA with me, Raisha Saigal.
And I'm Jyotsna Kumar. And on the show today, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has reached Italy to participate in the G7 summit. Prime Minister Modi will be taking part in the outreach meet and hold bilateral talks with the world leaders. Meanwhile, the G7 has agreed to use frozen Russian assets to raise $50 billion for Ukraine to help fight the Russian forces.
Of course, we'll be tracking all of that, what's happening in Italy today on the show. Also on World DNA, US Supreme Court has unanimously rejected an effort to restrict access to the abortion pill mifepristone. The top court said that the anti-abortion groups and doctors challenging the medication lack the legal standing to bring the case. A clear setback for anti-abortion groups in the US. We'll be tracking that on the show as well. But first, a quick check on the headlines.
Leaders of the G7 agree on an outline deal to provide $50 billion loan to Ukraine using interest from Russian sovereign assets frozen after Moscow invaded its neighbor in 2022.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives at Brindisi Airport in Italy's Apulia region to attend the 50th G7 summit. This marks Prime Minister Modi's first foreign trip since assuming office for a third consecutive term.
The U.S. Supreme Court rejects restrictions imposed by a lower court on an abortion pill widely used in the United States to terminate pregnancies.
The Hezbollah fire at least 30 drones at headquarters of Israel's Northern Command in a single coordinated strike, marking the group's largest yet drone attack.
Missiles fired from Yemen's Houthi hits the Palau-flagged cargo ship in the Gulf of Aden, sparks a fire and severely injures one of her crew. The rebels claim targeting 3 ships in Red Sea and Arabian Sea.
Heavy rains in central and southern Chile leave 4,000 people homeless, with thousands of homes damaged.
Tesla shareholders approve a $45 billion pay for CEO Elon Musk following a fiercely contested referendum on his leadership.
Rory McIlroy and Patrick Cantley set the early pace at the US Open. The duo jointly lead the field by one shot after the opening round.
And we start with the biggest event right now. The 50th edition of the G7 meeting has commenced.
Right, Jyotsna. Leaders of advanced economies are meeting for a 3-day summit to discuss various issues dominating the world at the moment.
And the first day of the summit, the G7 leaders agreed to use frozen Russian assets to raise $50 billion for Ukraine to help in its war against the Russian forces.
Well, the agreement was the centerpiece of the opening day of the annual summit, attended for a second successive year by the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
I can confirm that we have reached a political agreement to provide additional financial support to Ukraine of about $50 billion by the end of the year through a loan mechanism for the repayment of which the extra profits from Russian assets tied up in our jurisdictions can be used. We are not talking about a confiscation of these assets, but of the interest that accrues over time.
Also at the summit, President Biden and his Ukrainian counterpart signed a 10-year bilateral security deal hailed by Kiev as historic. The deal signed on the sidelines of the summit aims to commit future U.S. administrations to support Ukraine.
Biden also sent out a clear message to the Russian President Vladimir Putin.
We've taken 3 major steps at the G7 that collectively show Putin we cannot wait us out. He cannot divide us. And we'll be with Ukraine until they prevail in this war.
Ukraine has signed a 10-year security agreement with Japan as well on the sideline of the summit.
Furthermore, Ukrainian President met with UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. During the meet, UK announced new sanctions designed to degrade Russia's ability to wage war in Ukraine. Sunak asserted UK's support for Ukraine. He said that they will always stand shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine in its fight for freedom.
Italy also hosted a session focused on investments and infrastructure projects in Africa. Projects include a rail corridor that will connect southern and central Africa. It also aims to bring telecommunication on cables and other infrastructure to the region. The infrastructure investments are meant to serve as an alternative to China's development efforts, which the U.S. and its allies say China uses to exert influence on developing nations.
Meanwhile, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has arrived in Italy. Prime Minister Modi is attending the summit as an outreach country, focusing on major global issues impacting both the global south and the world at large.
On day two of the summit, various topics expected to be on the agenda are the war in Gaza, migration, economic security, and artificial intelligence.
Pope Francis is set to become the first pontiff to attend a G7 summit. He will be addressing the subject of artificial intelligence at the conference. While he has previously called for global regulation of AI, warning of its danger to ethics and human rights. Well, for more on this, we're now being joined by Lieutenant Colonel Daniel L. Davis, who is a military expert and host of Daniel Davis Deep Dive on YouTube. Welcome to World DNA, Colonel Davis. Now, the G7 has agreed to use frozen Russian assets to raise $50 billion for Ukraine. The leaders are describing this as a game-changing. How perhaps will it impact the ongoing war, keeping in mind that the money is not expected to arrive until the end of the year?
It's just curious to me how many times in the 2.5 years nearly of this war, I keep hearing something's going to be a game changer, and nothing has been a game changer. And this isn't either. I mean, just the least of which, because as you pointed out, this probably is not even going to start coming in toward the end of the year. And plus, it's going down a slippery slope. When you start confiscating, whether it's the direct funds or whether it's interest off the funds, you're still seizing the assets of another country and using them for something else. And look, Ukraine is in a war against Russia. But the West is not in a war against Russia. And to take the assets of a country that we're not at war in, I think sets a bad precedent. And I'm not sure that it's going to work out good either in this case. And it's probably going to undermine the belief and the trust in the West, in this rules-based order we keep talking about. This doesn't seem to be following that. And I think it's going to come back to haunt us.
Right. Now, as you say that, President Biden has said that signing this bilateral agreement is a reminder for Putin that he cannot divide us. That's what he said. Now, considering that, Putin has been replying to every comment which comes from the West, how do you think Putin will reply to this?
Well, look, just on the first of it, that's not accurate. We are being divided. You see that Hungary made a special point of saying they want out of what the NATO forces are doing in regards to Russia. You have Turkey, you have Slovakia, definitely not on board with what's going on. So there are some fissures already showing up. You see these votes that have happened, especially in Germany and France, with voters moving away from supporting this war. So that's what needs to be taken care of more than anything else. And just saying the words that he can't divide us, that he can't wait us out, when evidence is existing that maybe he can and maybe we are, that's what needs to be taken a look at.
Right. Colonel Davis, like a lot on the agenda, not just the war in Ukraine and the war in West Asia. Also, Africa is also on the agenda with Italy trying to push for energy infrastructure in Africa. And of course, like I mentioned, the war in West Asia. How do you see or envisage the G7 summit shaping responses to all these global issues, especially when most of the leaders who are attending the G7 summit, they themselves are facing political tensions back home?
Yeah, you hit it right there. The war in Ukraine and between Russia and how those governments are handling it is a big issue, but it's not the only issue. There's a lot of issues that are part that the ruling parties in almost all these countries, and that's including the United States, because right now President Biden's not, depending on which poll you look at, is not hardly secure. And the leaders of these countries are going to have to start paying a lot more attention to their domestic audiences instead of taking them in directions that they'd appear to not want to go in if they want to stay in charge. And so I think in that regard, probably a little humility would be in order for some of these leaders of the G7 to pay more attention to their people and less trying to tell the people where they're going to go.
Right. Thank you so much, Colin Davis, for bringing us all the details.
My pleasure.
Now, moving on, we have reproductive rights in the U.S. Advocates breathed a sigh of relief on Thursday after the U.S. Supreme Court unanimously rejected an effort to restrict access to the abortion pill mifepristone.
Right, so the top court said that the anti-abortion groups and doctors challenging the medication lacked the legal standing to bring the case. Our next report telling you more.
2 years after ending the constitutional right to abortion, the U.S. Supreme Court on Thursday rejected a bid by anti-abortion groups and doctors to restrict access to the abortion pill mifepristone. It hands a victory to President Joe Biden's administration in its efforts to preserve broad access to the drug. And it marked defeat for the plaintiffs, who argued that the Food and Drug Administration acted contrary to its mandate to ensure medications are safe when it eased the restrictions on the drug.
Obviously, we're disappointed.
Rachel Nesmith is an anti-abortion rights activist with Students for Life of America.
We know that chemical abortion pills are dangerous and that the FDA needs to put regulations back on them, that women are not safe with chemical abortion pills. So we'll be back with another case soon, I'm sure.
In a 9-0 decision, authored by conservative Justice Brett Kavanaugh, the court ruled that the plaintiffs behind the lawsuit lacked the necessary legal standing to pursue the case, which required that they show they have been harmed in a way that can be traced to the FDA. Mifepristone was given approval by the FDA in 2000 and is used in more than 60% of U.S. abortions. A ruling in favor of the plaintiffs could have threatened the regulatory authority of the FDA over drug safety. The case represented another front in the intensifying battle over abortion rights in the United States. In 2022, the Supreme Court, which has a 6-3 conservative majority, overturned its 1973 Roe v. Wade precedent that had legalized abortion nationwide, prompting numerous states to enact Republican-backed measures banning or sharply restricting the procedure. Biden, seeking a second term in office in this year's election, is an outspoken advocate for abortion rights. He and his fellow Democrats have sought to make abortion rights a central theme against Republicans ahead of the election.
Now, for more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report from New York. Listen.
The U.S. Supreme Court voted unanimously to maintain access to the abortion pill mifepristone, rejecting a challenge by abortion groups and doctors. The court found that the plaintiffs lack standing to challenge the FDA's approval of the drug. And while this decision maintains the status quo, abortion rights advocates are still cautious, as 14 states across the United States have near total abortion bans. The case may not be over, as 3 Republican-led states may try to revive the challenge. The Supreme Court will also hear another case relating to abortion soon, that regarding emergency room abortions in urgent situations. The decision highlights the ongoing battle over abortion access here in the United States, with both sides vowing to continue the fight just months before the November election. Since 2022, when Roe v. Wade was overturned by the Supreme Court, abortion access has become a main topic of discussion among Republicans and Democrats, and there is a stark contrast between the two. Democrats, for the most part, support abortion in almost all cases, while Republicans, less than 40%, feel the same way. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
Well, we now talk about a path-breaking piece of Russian technology deployed in an Arctic town in Russia's Far East.
Now, our WION's correspondent, Siddharth MP, brings you this report, which is exclusive on board the world's first floating nuclear power plant. Take a look.
With its red and blue lines, this giant barge, placed in a remote Arctic town in Russia's Far East, might seem like any other ship. However, that's totally not the case. This floating vessel is a pioneering piece of technology which Russia believes can guarantee energy security in the remotest parts of the world. Be it along coastal areas, island territories, and even the harshest of climates.
For several decades now, we've seen aircraft carriers and submarines that are powered and propelled by nuclear energy from their onboard nuclear reactors. But what we're standing on right now is the world's first floating nuclear power plant, which is in Russia. So what you're seeing behind us is the town of Pevek. The entire town of Pevek is not just powered, but also provided heat that is generated from this floating nuclear power plant, the only one in the world.
The world's only floating nuclear power plant, Academic Lomonosov, has been operational for 4 years now. It has proven its unique capability by delivering reliable and low-cost power supply in the harshest of Arctic conditions in the Russian Far East town of Pevek. The floating power plant barely needs any land, takes lesser time to build, costs much lesser than a land-based nuclear power plant, and can be towed to operate along any coastline in the world.
We're coming to you from inside the generator compartment of the floating nuclear power plant. So this is a fission-style nuclear reactor where the atom is split. So once the atom is split, a lot of heat is generated. That heat is used to actually turn water into steam. And that high-pressure steam is what runs the generator over there. There are turbines within that generator. When the steam turns those turbines, electricity is generated, and that electricity is supplied to the adjoining town.
For 80 years, Pevek has relied on a coal-fired power plant. But burning coal poses its own challenges. There are pollution concerns in the pristine Arctic. Carbon emissions from the coal power plant leave black traces on the ice. Black deposits on the ice absorb more heat and accelerate the melting of the ice. In comparison, there are no emissions from the floating nuclear power plant. In a few years, this town will witness the shutdown of the coal power plant and completely switch to nuclear power. However, there are widespread concerns over operating a nuclear power plant in the pristine Arctic region. The fear of a possible accident is something that can't be taken lightly. The Russian nuclear agency, however, maintains that their floating nuclear reactor is well capable of safely surviving any natural calamity. And, if needed, the floating nuclear power plant can also be towed away to safety.
When it comes to nuclear power plants, there's always the safety question that's asked. This is, of course, the world's first floating nuclear power plant. But Russia's nuclear power agency, Rosatom, says that the safety features here are unmatched. Be it natural calamities such as tsunamis, tornadoes, or earthquakes, or even other natural calamities, this one, they say, is built to withstand. In addition to that, they say that one of the highest safety features built in and designed in this reactor is the fact that even if a medium-sized Kamov helicopter, a Russian helicopter, actually crashes onto this reactor from a height of 50 meters, this barge and this entire reactor would remain safe, and the people and the environment here would not be contaminated in any way, and the reactor can continue to operate. With video journalist Ajit from Pevek into the Russian Far East, Siddharth MP, WION World is One.
Moving on. Nigel Farage's Reform UK party has overtaken Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's Conservatives in an opinion poll for the first time.
Right, and this comes ahead of Britain's election on July 4th. The poll by YouGov for the Times newspaper put Reform UK on 19%, up from 17% previously, and the Conservative Party unchanged on 18%. The opposition Labour Party topped the poll with 37%.
The survey of 2,211 people was carried out on June 12th and 13th. This is after Sunak pledged to cut $21.70 billion of taxes for working people in his party's election manifesto.
Reform's poll rating has risen since Farage, best known for his successful campaign for Britain to leave the European Union, said he was returning to frontline politics, taking over leadership of the party and standing for election to Parliament.
But wouldn't it be nice if we had people in Parliament in our country standing up for the majority view, standing up for the silent majority, unafraid to call it out, and it's going to need to happen. Yes. It's going to need to happen big time, because this election effectively is over.
Sunak's campaign has also been hit by sharp criticism after he left D-Day memorial events in France earlier than the other world leaders. Other opinion polls show the Conservatives much ahead of the Reform, despite overtaking Sunak's Conservatives in Thursday's poll.
Reform is not forecast to win many, if any, parliamentary seats. Britain has first passed the post-electoral system. This means that Reform could pick up millions of votes across the country without winning any of Parliament's 650 individual constituencies. Now, Italy, which is holding G7 meeting, witnessed unruly scenes in its parliament. A brawl broke out in the parliament, resulting in apparent injury of one lawmaker who had to leave the chamber in a wheelchair.
Well, watch these images of the fistfight in Italy.
And it's time now for a quick break, but don't go anywhere. On the other side of World DNA,
we get you a story with mounting assaults on Gazan territories. US President Joe Biden has expressed that he does not expect a Gaza ceasefire deal in the near future.
Also on the other side, social media platform X is now hiding users' likes. This means that users will still be able to see their own likes, but other users will not.
this week's episode of our special series, Yoga, celebrating India's gift to mankind, brought to you from the beautiful state of Kerala in southern India.
We explore an Ayurvedic retreat in Palakkad and tell you all about the power of the Indian traditional medicine system.
We want our Indian community to take the benefit of our local medicine.
What happens when ancient India meets artificial intelligence? From smart yoga mats to yoga apps at your fingertips, we look at the rise of AI in yoga. Watch our special series at this time, only on WION. World is One.
It's a double whammy for Africa's populous nation. Unions shut down country's power grid as cost of living crisis persists, making big conglomerates to also close shop in Nigeria. Respiratory diseases plague Kenya as more people burn wood to save money. And Somaliland's first girls basketball team secures right to play and now advocates for independence. Watch World of Africa at these times on WION. World is One.
Know more, understand better, think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast. On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists, Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays, 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
Nelson Mandela's ANC party that freed South Africa from apartheid loses its 30-year majority in historic election this year. WION brings you all the updates of the swearing-in ceremony of South Africa's president for the 7th administration right from the heart of the country's capital city, Pretoria.
Namaste. Hello friends. We did Dr. Subhash Chandra show, popularly known as DSC show, for 4 years from August 2014 to August 2018. 28 states of Bharat. Of course, we reached out to all of you in 190 countries across the world. The show was very successful. Each episode was being watched by almost 25 million people every week. For past 6 years, the demand of the show has never died down. People write to us, people ask for the show to restart again. Hence, we are beginning the show once again on All Z Network, also on WION, which is the global network channel from India. Again, thank you for your love and affection. See you soon at Subhash Chandra Show.
This week on Take It Out, we explain why Apple is walking a privacy tightrope with its big AI move. We tell you what parents can do to keep their children safe on social media. And we take you inside a humanoid robot factory. This and more on WION World is One at these times.
India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Welcome back. We have lots lined up on this side of World DNA, but first a look at the headlines.
Leaders of the G7 agree on an outline deal to provide $50 billion loan to Ukraine using interest from Russian sovereign assets frozen after Moscow invaded its neighbor in 2022.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in Italy's Apulia region to attend the 50th G7 summit. This marks PM Modi's first foreign trip since assuming office for a third term.
The US Supreme Court rejects restrictions imposed by lower court on an abortion pill widely used in the US to terminate pregnancies.
Hezbollah fired at least 30 drones at headquarters of Israel's Northern Command in a single coordinated strike, marking the group's largest yet drone attack.
Missiles fired by Yemen's Houthi hits the Palau-flagged cargo ship in the Gulf of Aden, sparks the fire and severely injures one of the crew. Houthis claim targeting 3 ships in Red Sea and Arabian.
Heavy rains in central and southern Chile leave 4,000 people homeless with thousands of homes damaged.
Tesla shareholders approve a $45 billion pay deal for CEO Elon Musk following a fiercely contested referendum on his leadership.
Rory McIlroy and Patrick Cantlay said the early pace at the US Open. The duo jointly lead the field by 1 shot after the opening round at Pinehurst.
Well, US President Joe Biden has said that he does not expect to seal a Gaza ceasefire deal in the near future.
Right, and there was a discussion on the Israel-Hamas war at the G7 summit taking place in Italy. Biden has called the Hamas the biggest hang-up to a deal on Gaza's truce and hostage release.
I've laid out an approach that has been endorsed by the UN Security Council, by the G7, by the Israelis, and the biggest hang-up so far is Hamas refusing to sign on, even though they have submitted something similar. Whether or not it comes to fruition remains to be seen. We're going to continue to push. I don't have a final answer for you.
Western areas of Rafah came under heavy firing in the last 24 hours. However, US continues to maintain that the IDF operation in Rafah is limited.
On the sidelines of the G7 summit, French President Emmanuel Macron said that France, US and Israel are together working on a roadmap to defuse tension between Hezbollah and Israel. He said US and France will do the same with the Lebanese authorities. This amidst dangerous escalation on the battlefield over the past few days.
Meanwhile, Houthis say they targeted 3 ships in Red Sea and Arabian Sea on Thursday. 2 cruise missiles launched by Iran-backed Houthi group struck a bulk cargo carrier in the Gulf of Aden. The Ukrainian-owned ship reported damage and subsequent fire on board. Well, the crew continues to fight the fire. One civilian mariner severely injured in the incident. He was evacuated by the American forces.
Ship Sea Guardian and Athena were attacked in the Red Sea. The operation were carried out using a number of ballistic naval missiles and unmanned aerial vehicle, as per Houthi military spokesperson.
The naval forces, the missile forces and the unmanned aerial forces of the Yemeni armed forces, with the help of the Almighty Allah, carried out 3 military operations in the past 24 hours.
In the last 24 hours, Hezbollah terror group fired at least 100 rockets, 30 drones at Israel in a single coordinated strike. This was the group's largest attack on Israel. Hezbollah said in a statement that it had targeted military sites in the attacks. This was in response to an Israeli airstrike on Lebanon. At least 7 people lost their lives in the attack.
Now moving on, authorities in Kuwait have detained 3 people for suspected manslaughter over a building fire that killed 49 foreign workers, mostly Indians, and plunged relatives and friends into mourning.
Among the 49 foreign workers killed in the fire, 45 dead Indian victims have been identified. 3 Filipinos are also among the dead. India, which had sent a military transport aircraft to Kuwait to bring back mortal remains of over 40 Indians, has taken off for Kochi, which is located in the Indian state of Kerala. Minister of State of External Affairs K.V. Singh, who coordinated with Kuwaiti authorities to ensure swift repatriation, is on board the aircraft.
Earlier, the Minister of State, accompanied by the Indian ambassador to Kuwait, met some of the survivors and senior officials in the Kuwaiti government.
Well, now we take a look at the strong recovery in Indian stocks after near $400 billion wipeout on election results day.
Indian shares recovered those losses in just 3 days. That is the fastest pace of recovery in the last decade.
Since Friday, Indian stocks have hit fresh record highs in 4 of the 5 sessions. Benchmark indices hit new intraday highs for the second consecutive day on Thursday. The blue chip Sensex index closed at a new all-time high of 76,000 after hitting an intraday life high of 77,000 on Wednesday. The index hit its previous high of 77,000. The broader Nifty 50 index also rose to a fresh record high of about 23,000, breaching the previous life high of 23,000 on Wednesday.
This week, trading volume in Indian stocks climbed to a record amid a strong recovery in broader market and foreign buying. According to Bloomberg data, the 10-day moving average volume on the nation's 2 exchanges rose to $21 billion on Wednesday. This marked a jump of about 50% over the past month. To put that into context, the trading volume was in the $6 to $10 billion range since 2022 and December last year.
Indian stocks got over the election shock at the fastest speed in recent history as domestic investors used the sell-off last week as an opportunity to buy the dip. The Nifty 50 index sank almost 6% on June 4th after Prime Minister Modi's alliance won a surprisingly slim majority. But the index recouped that loss in the next 3 sessions. That's the fastest recovery from a drop of more than 5% in the last decade. The previous fastest was 9 days to recover 13% loss in March 2020.
Inflows into equity mutual funds hit a record $4.2 billion last month. That despite the poll-linked volatility, which whipsawed markets in May. The flood of domestic money means any pullback has a short shelf life. This also contrasts with bearish bets by foreign investors who remain net sellers of more than $5 billion this quarter.
Well, Hong Kong's property market, a long-time symbol of the city's financial strength, is facing a major downturn.
Now, this decline also coincides with a period of social and political unrest, raising concerns about the city's future as leading financial hub. Take a look at this next report.
Hong Kong's property market, once a symbol of the city's prosperity, is experiencing a dramatic downturn. Home prices have plunged 29% since their 2019 peak, marking a 5-year decline. The slump coincides with a period of social and political unrest, leading to an exodus of expats and a decline in business confidence. Analysts predict a further 5% drop in residential property prices this year, with office rents also expected to fall significantly. The property market downturn in Hong Kong is a complex issue with several contributing factors. Rising interest rates, a slowdown in global economic growth, and changing work habits have all played a role. However, a key factor in the erosion of confidence in Hong Kong's future as a leading financial center. The city's strict COVID-19 policies and ongoing geopolitical tensions with the West have discouraged international investment, leading many multinational companies to re-evaluate their presence in Hong Kong. The property market slump is having a ripple effect on the city's economy. Real estate agents are struggling with the number of agents falling to a 6-year low in May. Developers are cutting prices for new projects and distressed Chinese companies are offloading properties at significant discounts. The government is attempting to reverse the downward trend by relaxing property curbs and introducing talent programs to attract investments. However, the long-term outlook for Hong Kong's property market remains uncertain. Business Bureau, WION World is One.
Tesla shareholders have voted to approve a $56 billion pay package for CEO Elon Musk with overwhelming support, and this move could perhaps have major implications for the future of the company and Musk's role within it. Our next report gives you more details on this decision. Take a look.
Tesla shareholders are voting to approve a $56 billion pay package for CEO Elon Musk. That's according to the man himself on Wednesday, with Musk sounding confident on social media. "Thanks for your support," he said in a post on X, adding the vote was by wide margins. The payout would be the largest remuneration terms in US corporate history. Overwhelming shareholder support could calm investor worries about Musk's future at the company. It may also give Tesla a stronger case in its fight to reverse a court decision to void the pay package. But Musk would still face a lengthy legal battle. He has to convince a Delaware judge who said the Tesla board was beholden to him, and may also have to fight fresh lawsuits over the latest vote. The results will be announced at a meeting at Tesla's headquarters in Texas on Thursday afternoon. A person familiar with the preliminary voting tally said big institutional investors and retail investor votes got the yes result over the line. Major proxy firms had urged shareholders to reject the pay package. Large investors, including Norway's sovereign wealth fund, had also said they would vote against it. Tesla shareholders also cast ballots on other proposals, including the move of its legal headquarters from Delaware to Texas. They can also vote on the re-election of 2 board members, Musk's brother Kimball and James Murdoch, son of media mogul Rupert Murdoch.
Let's now take a look at the developments from the world of technology. In an update, social media platform X is now hiding users' likes. This means that users will still be able to see their own likes, but other users will not. Additionally, like counts and other metrics for users' posts still show up under notifications. Under the new update, posts will still show how many likes they have, but only the author will be able to see the list of people who have liked it. According to X's engineering team, the change is intended to improve user privacy protection.
Alphabet's Google has been hit with a complaint by an Austrian advocacy group called NOYB for allegedly tracking users of its Chrome web browser. Well, the US tech giant is phasing out third-party cookies to protect consumer privacy. It has introduced a new tool called the Privacy Sandbox to block tracking techniques and limit data sharing with third parties. However, NOYB has said that the feature allows Google to track users within the browser. The group believes Google should first seek users' consent as required under European Union privacy rules. According to the founder of the company, Max Schrems, Chrome users are agreeing to the new tool, thinking that it is a privacy feature, but are being tricked into accepting Google's first-party ad tracking. NOYB has filed a complaint with the Austrian Data Protection Authority. Reportedly, this issue is already on EU antitrust regulators' radars.
A new smartphone app called CatsMe is making use of artificial intelligence to tell when a cat is in pain. Mayumi Kitakata has been using CatsMe to monitor her 14-year-old cat, Chi. She says it helps her decide when to visit the veterinarian.
These yellow marks are when the app indicated that the cat showed pain. If it continues for a while, in my case, I will consult the vet over the phone. If it keeps showing results like this for several days, I will realize something's wrong.
The AI model of the Japanese smartphone app has been trained on 6,000 pictures of cats. The app's developers expect its level of accuracy to improve as the AI model continues to train on more feline faces. Now, since its launch in 2023, CatsMe has been used by over 230,000 customers.
Well, now let's take a look at what's happening in the world of sports. Well, Rory McIlroy and Patrick Cantley set the early pace in the first round of the US Open. 2 days after reconciling with his wife, Erica, and dismissing the divorce petition he filed last month, 2011 champion Rory McIlroy went bogey-free to shoot 65 and outshone his playing partners Scottie Scheffler and Xander Schauffele. Cantley